This week, Danny Jenkins from Threatlocker is with us to discuss fixing your bad configurations. Then Wendy Nather from 1Password helps us reframe how we should be thinking about AI. Finally, in the enterprise security news, dozens of funding rounds over the last 2 weeks. Windows is becoming an agentic OS, and we talk about what that might actually mean. Some great free tools, the latest cyber insurance trends. We analyze some recent breaches, the Stop Hack Lore campaign, some essays worth reading, and how a whole country dropped off the internet because someone forgot to pay the bills. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
It's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With Threatlocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. Our Zero Trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots. Just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/threatlocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National SOC Day. This is episode 436, recorded on Thursday, December 4th, 2025. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria. Also joining us, the Dean of Data Science, the Angel of Conference Injuries, the Watcher of Data Center Waste, Jackie McGuire. How you doing, Jackie?
I'm fantastic. I took my kids to Monday Night Raw this week. We sat ringside, and I got to see myself all over Netflix, so I feel like I'm unofficially famous. I bought my husband a legit wrestling belt for early Christmas, so I feel like all around I'm like winning the wife and mom contest this week. So
and friend, and you won the friend one also. My partner is in high performance computing, and their RSA is called SC every year, short for supercomputing. And she broke her foot walking on the sidewalk and just randomly runs into Jackie, who helps her out for the rest of the day. So that was lovely. We are not expecting to see Jackie at a non-cybersecurity conference.
Yeah, I am multi-talented, and it was actually really awesome just to get to spend a few hours with your partner because she's amazing and super smart. So I feel like I probably got just as much out of it as she did without the broken foot.
Yeah, and you would have to see the text on my phone. The way the texts go, hey, Jackie's here. I see this picture. And then the next text is a photo from the ER. I'm like, what? Jackie, what'd you do? What'd you do with my girlfriend? It didn't happen in that order, but I'm glad you were there. That was great.
Yeah.
Not the broken foot part. Also joining us, the Baron of Bloodhound, the Pirate King of PowerShell, Sean Metcalf. How you doing, Sean?
Doing good, Adrian. I don't have anything that rivals going to WWE Raw or helping your partner with a broken foot, but I am wearing socks today, so that's something.
Hey, for most of my kids, that is an accomplishment.
Yeah, at least 50% of the folks on today's podcast live in a place where maybe you don't need socks. Maybe you don't have that much of a winter. Danny, I assume you're also in Florida, right? Central Florida?
Absolutely in Florida, but absolutely everyone's wearing socks in this office.
Okay.
And shoes. No flip-flops here.
No open toe policy. All right. So jumping into the interview here, this interview is sponsored by Threatlocker, and today's topic is fixing misconfigurations. We're excited to have Danny Jenkins, CEO and co-founder of Threatlocker, with us today, who you just heard. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you for inviting me today, Adrian.
Always lovely to have you and Rob on. We always have a lot of fun with the conversations. And this one in particular, I think I babysat Business Security Weekly, and we talked about DAC on there. But I'm glad we get to have the conversation on my main show here on Enterprise Security Weekly. And let's start with what DAC is and where it came from, because I think it's some of my favorite products are kind of these products of necessity. Like how do we solve this problem? And I think it was like an internal problem you're trying to solve that started off, right?
Kind of. So essentially, so we build this fantastic endpoint security suite. We focus on blocking by default, allow listing, ring fencing. So you get into PowerShell attack. You see attackers get on servers and they get madder and madder, and closing ports so they can't get onto servers, stopping untrusted software. And you make it really, really hard for someone to get access to a customer system. And then you get a call, customers being breached. Mm-hmm. And it turns out they had no deny policy in place, or their machine was in monitor only mode, or they decided to allow the entire C drive to run. And we just, it's 60 to 70,000 companies using Threatlocker at this point. I'm just like, why are people still getting breached? Like, there's no reason they should get breached. Every breach is the same. It always revolves around them doing something wrong. And it was written on my board here. And the original goal of this was, we just want to go in and check your Threatlocker configurations. And we called them dumbass configurations. and we said, let's go and have a policy to check all of your Threatlocker configurations to make sure they're right. And I don't know what happened, because it was supposed to be a simple feature. And so there was a Windows configuration that allowed EDRs and Threatlocker and security tools to be bypassed. So suddenly we added that as a check, and we can use Configuration Manager in Threatlocker to set it, but we added it as a check in there. And suddenly out of nowhere, it went from checking Threatlocker configurations to a product that's checking 200 plus configurations on every machine every day. Windows configurations, Threatlocker configurations, now Office 365 configurations are coming, and it's become this mammoth of a feature, I call it, because we don't charge for it. It's included in every one of our products, and it goes through and it just checks everything. And the cool thing about it is, every time we find another misconfiguration, we add it to the checklist.
It really is. I think every company's been in that position where somebody's troubleshooting something, and the easiest way to get it working is to disable a security tool or disable a security policy or configuration or something like that, fully meaning to come back later and fix it and work out, the more nuanced configuration that both secures you and allows the thing to work that you couldn't get working otherwise. I imagine, I've worked incidents like this. I've had incidents myself like this. I do a lot of analysis of breaches, and we see this over and over again, where you tell the company how it happened, and they're like, "Oh, right, like we're supposed to go back and re-secure that later after we finish the troubleshooting," but nobody ever does, right?
And that's the nice thing about this. It gives you a report every day. It tells you what new things have broken, what old things are broken, are still outstanding. And then we added this ability, and I almost think, again, accidentally super cool. In your DAC report, it's and we call it defense against configuration now, not dumbass configurations.
Yeah, a little more enterprise friendly.
Yeah, more enterprise friendly. But in your DAC report, you get a nice PDF. It's got nice charts, and it tells you your score, what percentage of your configurations are right, with critical scoring worse, how many endpoints affected can change your score. But it then gives you a percentile. So it tells you are above 56% of your peers. You are above 70% of your peers.
People love that. They love that stuff.
Although I will say, there's one bad thing about it, and that is people are getting mad that they can't say this is a pass even if it's not. Like, well, it's not a pass. You can accept the risk. That's absolutely fine. You can say that we're accepting this configuration to be like this, but you can't get mad and say that I want it to show as a pass, because it's not passed. But it's nice because we've seen customers literally racing to, and I went in with my demo account on the day we deployed the percentile thing, and I was 100 percentile, as in my demo account was the most secure account on the entire instance of Threatlocker, and it's per instance. We're trying to merge it so it's across all instances. Within 7 days of that, I was down at 56 percentile.
Yeah.
because everyone else was like, we've got to get our score up. And then suddenly mine just dropped down. I was, what? Mine just dropped down. And it's great because I think it's creating this culture of, I want to make my system better than our peers.
Yeah. Yeah. Gamification can be really powerful like that. But I too have been in the position, particularly delivering pen test reports, where I get the request, I need you to make this critical a medium, right?
Yes.
Well, it's not. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry this inconvenience you. This is an inconvenience to you in some way, and it's going to force you to trigger some process where you have to go do extra work. But that's why we're doing this.
We fight with our pen testers on that too, because we have this TLS 1.1 support for Windows XP machines. And our pen testers love to mark it as a high or a critical. It's like, we support it. We don't default to it. And is it better to not have security? And that's, so of course, every pen tester has their own opinion on what it should be. It's like, well, our systems aren't unsecure because of it. But if a customer's using Windows XP, their systems are less secure when they communicate with us. But is it better to have cybersecurity that's running with a lower encryption communicating to your vendor than not have it running at all?
I have a list of all the breaches that happened because of an old version of SSL or TLS.
Yeah.
And it's empty. There is nothing on that list.
Well, because you have to be on the network between.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not impossible, but it means you've got to be on the network in between and then modify the data, at which point, if you're that close, you're probably going to get what you want anyway.
Yeah, there are easier ways, like misconfigurations, that attackers can go after. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, we're over 200 configurations now. We also align it with compliance. And so we'll say, for example, you have macros enabled in Office. And if you want to enable macros in Office, that's absolutely fine. If you use macros, it's good. Ring fencing can help mitigate those risks by stopping it call out to PowerShell and stopping it call out to other programs. But generally, if you don't use it, disable macros in Office. That improves your score. That's better. If you want to do it for one machine, then you get a smaller hit because you just have your CFO who needs macros because the CFO loves to write software in Excel.
Yeah. And you can apparently earn merch and stuff like that with some of these I've seen. You have DACR t-shirts.
We have DACR t-shirt, and I wish I had them here now, but we have a DACR t-shirt and we have a DAC attack t-shirt. So, and it seems to be a draw on which one people like before. And the DACR t-shirt is like a dictionary definition. It says DAC and then .er. And it says a person who is obsessed with cybersecurity configurations. And it's got a little chart on it of your score. So if you get past 90%, you can get a DACR t-shirt, or you can get a DAC attack t-shirt, which is like the old arcade game. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. So I think we've sent a few of them out. We actually had a bug because it's technically it's due to come out of beta hopefully in the next week. But it's as we were transitioning to the live databases, it showed a bunch of people at 100%. Even though it showed, and they were like, "Oh, my free T-shirt, I'm 100%." It's like no one's 100%.
I think the peer comparison is good, both from a gamification standpoint, but like I'm a big fan of maturity models because I feel like a lot of security teams live in a bubble where they feel like, they're so far behind everybody else and they get into this kind of either executive dysfunction or analysis paralysis, feeling like, oh, I'm so far behind, I can't catch up, so I'm not even going to start. But if then you start to show meaningful, like here are where your peers are, here's the low-hanging fruit, you kind of break that negative inertia that people have. And I feel like that's, if you don't have a really good community as a security leader around you of other security leaders that you can ask these questions, then just being able to see what other people are doing, I think makes a huge difference when you're making decisions. And it's one of the things that I find actually moves the needle within security culture at companies is the peer comparison and being able to see meaningful progress against a benchmark. And a lot of companies don't take the time to stop and do that. So I love this.
Well, and also you get to know what you should be doing today, because what you should have done 20 years ago is very different to what you should do today. And what's critical today might have not been critical 20 years ago. So for example, there was a vulnerability or a potential backdoor, if you like, in 7-zip announced last month, October, 2 months ago, where when you extracted a 7-zip file, now you had to be an admin, so it wasn't that severe. if you weren't an admin. But when you extracted a 7-zip file, the 7-zip file could actually, so say you extract it to your desktop, it could actually say, I'm going to extract this to your startup folder and drop an executable in your startup folder. So that becomes now a very serious thing that you should be having, where you should have ring fencing, your admin should go away. And of course, you shouldn't be running an unpatched version of 7-zip. So we're able to update the recommendations based on what's happening at a point in time. And if Microsoft says, now we're going to change the recommendation on Windows because people are now starting to use MSHDA. I mean, we've had MSHDA ring fence forever, but suddenly that went from a medium to a critical because people are sending scripts out it's suddenly become a big attack vector where you say, run this command in start run, opens MSDHDA, runs malicious remote code. We can now go and put these new checks in to say, these are the new recommendations. So if you've been in the same IT job for 15 years, we're telling you, hey, we're not in the same world we were 15 years ago. So these are the things you should be doing. These are examples. We give you real life examples of this is a type of attack that could happen. This is attacks that have happened. These are the compliance framework. This is the exact language of the framework. And then you can go, okay, now that makes sense to me of why I need to suddenly do this. And even in Office 365, we're working through that one right now, just turning off ability to log in from anonymous browsers if you don't use them. Only be able to log in for Azure join accounts from a browser. That makes a huge difference on token theft. And quite often, it's 3 or 4 clicks for a user, costs them nothing or an admin, and you've just reduced your surface area of attack by 80%.
So just some more details on DAC. I'm curious, like what platforms does it run on? Like you've made some Windows references here. You've referenced Microsoft 365, which is a SaaS platform. Does it run on Mac, on Linux? Can you use it for third-party applications or just the operating system?
Okay, so right now it runs on Windows, Mac. I don't think Linux has been in any kind of release yet, but it's close. And Office 365 is very close to being released. So obviously DAC itself is us giving security recommendations on specific operating systems or products. So we're expanding it out to as many products as possible. Office 365, then we're going to G Suite, AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure, all of those other programs. So we're going to check your configurations for those. And we're checking them on Windows, on Mac at the moment. Office 365 comes imminently and Linux will come shortly behind. In addition to this, we're working on a compliance software where you can build your own checks, your own compliance checks, and say, I want to make sure we check for this configuration every day. And it could literally be, I want to check if this backup ran every day and make sure it's in my DAC report, or I want to make sure that we've collected this evidence once a quarter. So that's where we're going to expand into more of a full compliance platform. But the DAC feature that's going to remain free, we're going to build as many products in as possible, that have basically, here's a list of hard-coded checks we're doing every single day. And with those hard-coded checks, we're going to tell you, this is what you're not doing that we recommend. And it doesn't matter if you fail some of them. And we have low, medium, and high. For example, you're not going to put a lock policy to automatically lock kiosk machines in an airport on a screen. Mm-hmm. It's okay to have that on your list as, hey, there's a thing, I've acknowledged it for the next 90 days, and I'll review it again in 90 days.
Right. Yeah, and I've just seen so many cases where somebody goes out, does proof of concept, buys a security tool, installs the agents across their fleet, and then they move on to the next project, and they miss some step where they actually enable that security tool, right? Like it's sitting there without a policy or something like that. I think checks like this it would be nice to have one security agent that's checking all the other ones and making sure they're actually running, that they're actually working, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things that and some of the stuff we check has got nothing to do with Threatlocker, and you could use another product to do it. So if we're checking for macros, we're checking if macros have been disabled in Office, whether it's through Threatlocker or whether it's through something else. We're checking if macros, we're checking have you disabled older TLS versions, regardless of what platform you use. And then we're also making Threatlocker specific checks. Where we expand out is, can we check other third-party tools? And a lot of that's going to be API integration into those tools, making sure we get the data. Office 365 being the biggest win, because I think simple configurations in Office 365 can make a huge difference to your probability of having a token theft. And so many people don't realize that. So if we can go in and say, this is what's wrong on your configurations, and then that's good. And the nice thing is it checks every single asset every day. So it's not a case of, oh, this is wrong. It's checked once a year during our pen test. It's checked every single day. So if something changes, you'll get your email notification in the morning saying you have 5 critical failures, of which one of them is new on your DAC. So you can go, what's new? And you can look at it and say, oh, someone had just made a change that they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Do you think this is kind of a canary in the coal mine for your business in general? So as CEO, one of the things that I've seen increasingly over the last couple of years is that as the attack surface expands, as security becomes more complex, it seems like customers expect more of their vendors than they used to, right? So you're no longer just a vendor of tools. They kind of expect you to partner with them and be a trusted advisor and kind of give them not just the tools to take action, but also tell them what to take action on. So as you think about kind of expanding this and building this out, do you feel like this is the direction that the business in general is going to keep going, where you really need to kind of partner more closely with your customers? Are you seeing that as well?
I think that's what we've been focused on from day one. And I think I've never heard of a company mission statement for a security company say to write software. I've never heard that as a mission. I think as a mission, we want to stop cyber attacks, and our mission is to change the paradigm of security from default allow to default deny. And that doesn't just mean writing software. It's one of the things that's absolutely been critical to Threatlocker is we are here to educate our customers and our partners and to guide them and make sure they're doing everything they need to. And one of the things that we did as a company from day one, so we've always done this DAC. Now we're just automating it in some respects. In that we try and get every customer to at least get on once a quarter. We don't charge, so some people get on once a week. I've got some airports and airlines and hospitals that get on with an engineer every week with Threatlocker and say, what should I be doing that I'm not doing in Threatlocker? And we'll walk through their configurations, we'll check, and we'll do that human part of it. And we realized when we started as a company, you have an engineer assigned to your account. That engineer is here to make sure that you get everything you need, you get the questions answers, but you also know what you're not doing right. So they'll get on with you whether it's once a week or once a month or once a quarter, and say, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what we recommend. What DAC does, it expands on that, because it's now almost a check on the engineer too, because the human, even I'd like to say we've got some of the best engineers in the industry, but they can only do so much and they can only remember so much. And if they don't think to look for something, they wouldn't know about it. So if they don't think, oh, maybe the customer added a policy to allow the whole Windows folder, they wouldn't even think about checking for that. So this is going to make sure that they're checking for it, and it's going to support our engineers in making sure the customer knows what's wrong as well. And it's one of the things we've always thought. Threatlocker has never been about a piece of software. Even to the point, we block untrusted software, but 30% of our team, maybe a little bit, maybe late 20%, but no, I'd say close to 30% of our team job is to track software updates. So you don't have to. So you buy a tool to block untrusted software, but what you're actually paying for is the 200 people sitting here in Orlando that make sure every single Windows update, Office update, Chrome update, and 10,000 other apps are cataloged. So you don't have to think about an update being blocked of a piece of software that's trusted. And I think as a company, our customers expect more, and they're also expecting more products and features, but we also have always thought we need to deliver we're not a software company, we're a cybersecurity company, and that means delivering cybersecurity outcomes. And if we fail at delivering the outcome, we failed the customer.
Yeah, Sean, I want to give you a chance in case you have any questions here.
Yeah, so building on what Adrian said, I mean, it sounds like DAC's very good for helping with those so-called temporary permanent configurations, the ones that are done to just take care of something and fix it because it's checking for those. But it also sounds like it's checking primarily for capability from things that you've seen as far as cybersecurity threats and things like that. So what is kind of that update cycle where you see a threat, you see something that happens in through your tool, through Threatlocker itself, and then later on someone goes, hey, we could actually check for this in DAC. What is that time frame?
Yeah, so and I think when we think about security threats, and the nice thing about the way Threatlocker has two parts to our agent, if you like, or our product. We have our protection tools, what we call our zero trust, so our allow listing, our ring fencing, our network controls. They're very, very static. This program only needs to access this. Therefore, it should only access this. And then we have a detection team which looks for indicators of compromise. So even if you didn't put protection in place, we're still going to monitor it for known threats. And there's a few different ways we choose the configurations. One is what we're seeing as common misconfigurations, or common, not even misconfigurations, because it's not just temporary, it's things that people didn't know they have to do. Like no one's teaching every IT manager and every CISO out there, you should ring fence MSHTA and stop it going out to the internet. No one's saying that in a daily conversation. So one part of DAC is, we're going to give you
Security
this
Plus doesn't cover that.
Yeah, so it doesn't. So if we can keep adding, we can go and say, well, this is what you should be doing. If you're not doing it, then we recommend you do it. And the second thing is, okay, when there's a threat, when there's a new threat or an indicator of compromise, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take two approaches. One is we're going to test it against our current recommended configurations and say, would this threat be a real threat if you had blocked untrusted software, ring fence the apps we recommend? And if the answer is no, then that's good. And by the way, 99.9% of the time, the answer is no, because that's the nice thing about a zero trust world. The second half of it is we're then going to make sure that our threat detection team is able to detect that threat if you didn't have your tools configured properly. So that is priority. And that's the stuff that happens in minutes or hours after we discover something new. Oh, there's a new vulnerability in the 7-zip. How do we detect it? The next thing we're going to do is say, if a configuration could have improved it, what configuration should we be checking for? And that's so. And sometimes it's not a case of would it have blocked it, but it's could have improved it. And should we highlight that as a higher cause of configuration? So we'll do that pretty much immediately. We'll start saying, is there an improved configuration? And most of the time, there isn't an improved configuration that we're not checking for. But if there is, we'll go and add it in. The other area is even like MSHTA being ring fenced. That's been a standard policy in Threatlocker for 5 years. Now it's become a big issue with people telling people to copy and paste this command. That then says, well, we have a DAC check for it. It is default configuration in Threatlocker and a recommended configuration in Threatlocker, but I now see this as a critical configuration because it's a commonly used attack vector. So we'll go and add that in as that critical configuration. So that's kind of the life cycle of how we're getting these things in there. I'm going to move this up to critical because it's really, really important. And even other areas, like a good recent example is the speed of cyber attacks has massively changed. Like if you go back over the last 2 years, the time from initial access to impact has gone from days or weeks in some cases to minutes or hours if you're lucky. And so one of the recommendations we put in place now is that you should automatically block admin tools in the event of an indicator of compromise being detected. Even if it's not a confirmed compromise, just an indicator is enough to block admin tools. So we'll now check for that. So that's a new DAC check we added because we're saying the speed is now faster, therefore we should try and slow them down.
So one other question that occurred to me here, there's other products that your customers likely have that are also managing configuration. Maybe MDM, maybe group policy, something like that. How are people typically using this product with other in an environment where likely other products are doing some kind of enforcement of configurations as well?
And there's two parts to our checks. We have our checks in two categories. We have checks against Threatlocker policy, and then checks against policy configurations in Windows. The threats against Threatlocker policy are, do you have a policy in Threatlocker to allow the entire Windows folder? And that's a stupid policy, so we're going to say that's a fail. The check against the Windows, it really doesn't matter how the policy gets there. We'll say, because whether they're using a Microsoft Intune or they're using SCCM or they're using Active Directory or they're just doing it locally, we're just going to check the output of the policy. And if the policy is lock 15 minutes or to disable this setting in Windows, we're actually saying this is checked. We've checked the outcome. We don't care how it got there. Now, if it fails, and that's where suddenly what I thought was our least valuable product becomes an incredibly valuable product, which is Configuration Manager, which we give away in a lot of packages. It's a company we acquired. We ended up rewriting it because it wasn't that great at the beginning. But it's basically group policy managed from our console. But it's not group policy. It's essentially setting those registry keys that group policy would set.
Right.
And what's nice is when the DAC check fails, it will actually tell you in the DAC check, this has failed. You can set a group policy. Here's the instructions to set the group policy. Or you can add a configuration manager policy, and it's going to take you 5 seconds. So you click add, and it will say, this policy is going to turn on BitLocker on your machines. And you click save, and it turns on BitLocker. And you don't have to then think about, I've got to go into Active Directory and configure that policy. And if you go and do it in Active Directory, we're going to check it and say it's already on. We can't turn it on. So no reason to turn it on. And we're going to pass the test.
Gotcha. And before we wrap here, I have to ask, it seems like we've got to be like maybe 3 months out from the next Zero Trust World. When is that coming up?
3rd to 4th of March, I think. So pretty much exactly 3 months out.
Oh, nice.
Or 3rd to some 5th of March. It's at the beginning of March anyway. And we got some new cool stuff coming around configuration there as well.
Yeah, nice. The follow-up question was going to be whether DAC was going to be, I imagine it would be heavily featured there. You'd have sessions on DAC, how to use it, that kind of stuff.
DAC and also some other stuff that's kind of spawn out from DAC, because we want to make sure that we can really get control of your environment and you know what's happening, so you can actually run. That's where we're going to start adding third-party tests and more third-party, where you can actually go and script your own tests to say, hey, run this PowerShell command every day. Tell me the output, check this registry key, check this value, make sure it hasn't been changed.
Yeah,
it was a great event last year, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's, I'm getting it's, every year we've doubled attendance nearly.
Oh,
and
wow.
I think if we double attendance again, I'm going to have a really, but it's going to be a busy few days. But it's going to be very exciting. And I think we've got a lot of really cool sessions happening as well.
Awesome. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. This is great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Make sure you visit securityweekly.com/threatlocker to learn more. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk about recalibrating how we talk about AI with Wendy Nather from 1Password. Imprivata delivers simple and secure access management solutions for healthcare and other mission-critical industries to ensure every second of crucial work is both frictionless and secure. Imprivata Enterprise Access Management delivers simple and secure access to any app from any device with single sign-on, multi-factor, and passwordless authentication. The solution streamlines workflows, reduces password fatigue, and ensures seamless access for every identity. Learn more about how Imprivata is redefining secure access at securityweekly.com/Imprivata. Identity and access management is hard. Whether it's administering identities, managing and controlling access, building, implementing, and enforcing policies, or governing the whole thing, IAM is often the realm of inefficient processes, bloated implementation timelines, and expensive and complex projects that struggle to solve problems. Thanks to Junto, those challenges can be a thing of the past. Junto delivers a full-stack IAM platform with a microservices architecture that delivers all of the functionality your unique environment demands, and an implementation model built for rapid and relevant time to value without requiring specialized staff and skills. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Junto. Cyber threats follow a familiar path, an attack chain reused across the globe. Fortra knows how the enemy operates, so you can stay one step ahead. Our advanced security solutions detect, disrupt, and defeat threats at every stage, protecting your data, business, and customers. With Fortra at your side, the battle ends before it begins. Visit securityweekly.com/Fortra to see how you can get total attack chain coverage. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. For today's second interview, Wendy Nather, Senior Research Initiatives Director at 1Password, joins us today to talk about toxic anthropomorphism. And I did not anticipate how many times I would have to say that when I said we had to talk about this on the podcast. Wendy is a friend, mentor, catchy phrase coiner, things like cheeseburger risk, security poverty line, and now toxic anthropomorphism. This interview is not sponsored by 1Password, but 1Password is a sponsor, which means I have to be nice to Wendy. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Thank you for having me.
We would
Who would be
anyway.
mean to
Why,
Wendy?
indeed.
We're all from the 451 family. We all have connections. We would be nice anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a secret contract somewhere. We have to be nice to each other.
Yeah. Shh, we don't tell anybody about that.
So, well, it's not secret anymore, Adrian.
Shoot, I keep forgetting how secrets work.
That's all right. So do 90% of the security teams we deal with.
That's a different conversation. It's a conversation for another time. So, Wendy, I love that you mentioned this on Mastodon. This started as a toot because I had been, I think, even in the same day that you published this, I had been frustrated because I'm faculty over at IANS. I'm often advising enterprises, and it's a very common question, like, how do we trust AI, right? Like, how can we trust AI? And I'm like, you don't trust it. It's a technology. You QA the technology, right? Like it's not a person. You don't trust it. And I was going through these rants. I didn't really have a way to, to really characterize my frustration around this until I read your toot. And I'm curious how you kind of came to the same conclusion, how you came up with the term. Like what had you been seeing?
It just kind of fell out of my fingers onto the keyboard. It was just one of these very very sudden things. But I was trying to express the fact that it's so widespread that anything that we do with natural language vis-a-vis a program, the natural language tends to trigger, the innate parts of our brain that try to build a social connection with somebody, and we start inferring feelings and thoughts and emotions. We have theory of mind. We start thinking about what is it thinking back at us? Why did it say that? Maybe it feels hungry or whatever. I remember talking with Eliza back in the 80s and trying to get it to say bad words. But I was never under the impression that it was a person, and yet you really can't help it when you're engaging in natural language with something that's responding back to you the same way. There are just some innate things in the back of our brains that just kick in. And I do think that this is affecting how we treat something that is just software. It is just software. It is not thinking. It is not feeling. It is not lying. It is not planning. And I think this is hard for people who are not used to working with software. When something responds to me in a weird way, I go, "Oh, I wonder who programmed it that way."
Right.
And that's what I think we should automatically be feeling. But this is something that's part of human nature that's very hard to fight.
And we can tell people it's just linear algebra, but like when it answers them and sounds so convincing, like I think it's really hard for a lot of people to, for that to really take root in their brain, because again, the moment you interact with it, you're like, wow, it's polite and it's answering my question, and it, like it really carries off the trick very well. Sorry, Jackie, you were saying something.
Oh, I was saying, I think we've talked about this before, and I think that's why, even though LLMs are insanely inefficient and arguably the worst machine learning thing to throw at most problems, they're very compelling, because the generative adversarial networks do produce content that's very believable. It sounds like it's plausible. And, I complained for like a year before agentic AI really took hold that, why are we using these expensive things to solve deterministic problems? And it's just because they answer us in this very sycophantic, believable way that makes them feel like our best friend. I even think it's why people, when you say agent, they think like entertainment agent or travel agent. They don't think an agent like a daemon on steroids, just sitting waiting for instructions. And it definitely is inhibiting, I think, productive growth of this technology that could be helpful, but not the way we're using it.
Yeah, if you want to use it, as somebody said the other day, and I forget who, but they said, if not answer, why answer shaped? And that's what it does. It gives us, answer shaped output. And the whole point is for it to give plausible output. weighted towards what is most plausible because most people usually say it. It is, the statistically most likely output. And where does it get the data that it's trained on? From public data. And so it's the homogenization of everything that is most public, which, tends to be marketing data, marketing language. And that's why everything that it produces sounds like marketing language, because that's what it gets the most of, statistically speaking. So
it's also super happy to take the blame. Like, that's one of the things people love about AI is when you're like, you're wrong. It's like, oh my God, I'm the worst person in the world. This definitely wasn't your prompt engineering.
Somebody programmed it to answer that way because it wanted a toady, whoever did that wanted a toady. And so it's, if you want it to write the most probable stuff, then that's fine. But if you want it to find facts, it will give you anything that sounds like a fact. Like the other day, I found myself interacting with Grok. I don't know why, but I think it was giving me my profile, and then it said, "Would you like me to summarize some of her talks?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" So I asked it. It offered to summarize the keynote I gave at RSA in 2020 on democratizing security. And it gave me a summary, but what it did was it took everything that other people tend to say about democratizing security and it put that as a summary. It did not list what I actually said in the keynote. It just gave, the statistically most likely comments based on what it was trained on. So, yes, it was plausible and it was not true.
And that's another aspect of it that bothers me, is that it's constantly pushing you to use it more. Like you can never just end a prompt or end a session, right? Like there's always some suggestion at the end. It must be in the system prompting. It says, always offer one more thing that you can do. And sometimes it just ends up wasting my time and taking me down a rabbit hole. Sorry, Sean, your face was making, you were making question face.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and people are forming relationships with these models. And when the model gets updated, are in some cases quite distraught that the model itself and this relationship with this anthropomorphized
changes its personality
changes its personality and is handling things differently. I mean, famously with ChatGPT recently. It's more than just the thought that there's a being there, but that relationship with that being because of how it acts and how it reinforces and how it tries to be polite and it tries to provide more information. I think it's very concerning when people are getting that attached to software, at least at this stage.
Well, we do the same thing when we are texting with somebody or when we're talking online with somebody we've never met. I mean, we're reacting to the text that is that is being output onto our screens, and we are inferring all the rest based on what what something else typed at us. We are immediately accepting that it's a person, and we're taking at face value whatever it says to us. Anything emotion laden that comes back, we just, absorb it. So we've been trained to do this since, I don't know when. I've been talking with people online since the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. So Wendy, I don't know how far you've gone down the path of thinking about like what the solution for some of this should be. Like should these models be spitting out more disclaimers? Like I know most of them have the output may be false, general disclaimer, but it almost seems like something in line, like as you're using the thing, like maybe you need a reminder, hey, AI is not people. Stop treating me as people. Have you thought at all about maybe it's just training, just prompt engineering training? Like what should we do to help people not fall in this trap?
First of all, I would change the font back to Courier, the old-fashioned typewriter font, so that
fixed width.
So it would look more like computer output. I think we would and this is not going to happen, but if I were in charge, I would make it um, stop conversing as if it were, stop using I pronouns, or, oh, I feel
Mm.
so bad about this, or I'm not sure what you're saying. It would just say, yeah, your input is unspecified. Please elucidate, or something really artificial sounding, so that it would get us back to what we're more used to, which is trying to type something into a terminal window and then trying to debug what comes back from it.
Yeah. It's I think it's also like we've had this issue since the advent of real like social media and the widespread availability of, technology and social text to people, and that the harms are really hard to measure. And when it's psychological harms and societal harms and things like that, that's a lot harder to measure than like, oh, you burned through, 2,500 hours of compute at the cost of $5,000. And I was just reading a study about one of the social media companies burying a study that showed that quitting that social media platform reduced depression. And, that's a harm that you can measure and that you can show. But I think because it's more abstract, it's hard to create regulations around that, right? Because to Adrian's point, like the question at the end feels a lot like how you have to swipe backwards 3 times to exit TikTok. And that makes it very addictive, because when you swipe back the first time, you get new content. And so I think how much of this has to do with we need to find better ways to measure the human impact of technology.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if you read anything by Ed Zitron, but he is an incredibly smart analyst person, and he talks about the incentives that are at play in tech these days, which are all about, getting people to click more, getting things stickier, getting more looks, more clicks, more time spent on a site. None of that is optimized for how humans need it to work. It is optimized for how the business is to function. And so that's why, yeah, all of these incentives that we see, including the way LLMs socialize with us, it has to be that way if you're solving for the problem of how can I get this used more.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen that with product development, where I think it's Grok or XAI. One of them now have different personalities, like they're specifically encouraging you to use it in that way, and talking about it curing the loneliness epidemic and stuff like that, which I think is a dangerous path. I'll get that into the show notes though, because the moment I pulled up Ed Zitron, I immediately recognized it, because he has that kind of. It's his blog is called "Where's Your Ed At?" and it has like
Yes.
a Mount Rushmore cartoon there.
Yeah, yeah. His stuff is very, very long, but he doesn't hold back, and so it's very entertaining reading.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I thought was interesting is you had some autistic folks have kind of a different take on this. I wonder if you've dug into that a bit more, because I found that fascinating in some of the replies.
Yeah, that was really interesting, and it makes sense to me. I mean, I have a lot of autism in my family, and everybody's autism. Oh, hi. Everybody's autism is different, but there are some things that those people were acknowledging and suggesting in common, in that a lot of the things that trigger the social connection parts of our brain are not as triggered with them, especially if they have trouble reading nonverbal cues and trying to understand why somebody said the thing that they said. For example, one my kid who has autism is very sensitive to people's moods. That can understand when somebody's upset. They just can't figure out why. And so there's that disconnect. And I think I suspect that's something at play, but I would really like to get more actual autistic people to talk more about their experience using this same technology and what things, they notice and don't notice and don't react to that tend to sucker us in, people who don't have those specific challenges.
Yeah, my best friend has a son who's autistic, and he wants nothing to do with the Alexa at all, and won't even talk to her, or will avoid and stay away from that. But getting back to the harm equation, Jackie mentioned about the harm when it comes to certain social media and people feeling less than themselves on that. And I think there is a danger, to Adrian's point about loneliness, where people, again, if they feel like this thing is engaging with them, then they have a mentor or someone that can help them along this path. And I think this is especially dangerous with people who are depressed, especially clinically depressed. And we've already seen some people kill themselves because of the prompt responses that they got back. And very likely they had thought, or I'm guessing here, but it's possible that they thought that this again, being was interacting with them and giving them suggestions and saying, hey, go ahead and do this. Why not? And that is very dangerous. How do you think we can solve that? Or is that solvable?
Yeah, I think part of it is that we are, everybody who has worked with computers is used to the data that comes out being authoritative, being official, being right. And it's a very different game now. I was talking with an executive who said, we were talking about some statistics, and he said, I asked ChatGPT and it gave me this statistic. I don't understand why it's so different from, what you've experienced. And I want to say, because it's wrong. It made up the number. But that's
literally predictive text.
Yeah, we are suddenly asking people to stop trusting something that they have learned over decades to trust. So that's another problem.
Well, it's so crazy to me, the cycles, because, being a child of the internet of the early and late 90s, it was like, don't ever even tell anybody on the internet where you are. Don't tell them your name, and then we went all the way from that to Facebook wants you to give them your driver's license and you can only use your real name and everything on the internet is true. I have to admit that I'm not super sad to see us moving back to the everything on the internet's probably BS and you should probably double check, because we went a little bit too far the other way. And I'm like a cynical optimist. I hope this makes us go back to interacting in person, because I think this is kind of a collision of a few different things. One, social media algorithms that optimized for engagement, and they always say engagement equals enragement. So we created these social spaces where they were only reflecting the extreme ends of the spectrum, and it didn't feel safe anymore. And so I think part of why people gravitate towards LLMs is because they're the opposite. They feel very safe. They feel very sycophantic. Then you have COVID, where everybody gets locked in the house and we stop interacting in person. And these three factors, I think, combine to make people extra vulnerable to LLMs. So I'm hoping that it actually pushes people back to, let's interact in person. Let's stop being as extreme on the internet. I don't know. This is probably very far-fetched, but maybe we can find some good in it and people will start talking to each other in person again, because they find that people are always a heck of a lot nicer in person than they are on the internet.
Well, look at what's happened with marketing, right? We've kind of moved from this, like people don't trust brands anymore. Brands interact with and work with influencers, right? People who have these personal brands. People trust individuals, not corporations at this point. And we've also seen a trend with, I always try to assure people when we do a webcast, when we're prepping for it, and I try and talk them into turning off their background blur or their corporate background or whatever. It's fine if your background's messy. It's fine if you say and you say anything that makes you sound less like Notebook LM or like something artificially polished is now being seen as like a positive thing.
Genuine, authentic.
Genuine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what happened with diamonds, right? Diamonds were the big thing because
Yes.
the perfect diamonds was what you wanted, and then the lab grown ones finally hit the tipping point, and now the industry is like, go with a real diamond because it's flawed, it's imperfect.
Yeah,
Right.
interesting. So, Wendy, before we let you go, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about with your day job, like how is 1Password dealing with kind of the AI explosion here, and how people are interacting with them. More and more of these things have their own identities. There's credentials tied into them. What's your angle there?
Well, there's, as a lot of people say, there's security for AI, and there is security um, created by AI, or security in AI, or security from AI. What we're focusing on mostly is helping to secure AI. If you're going to be using it, if you're going to be using agents, um, you might as well store your credentials with us, just as you're storing your application credentials or your SSH keys. Um, and so it's not our job to convince you to use AI or not. But if your business has decided that you need agents, then we're going to help support that with and do it securely.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting with, I see a potential future where when AI agents live on your endpoint along with your password manager, like there are going to be HR cases where the defense is, it was the agent on my laptop. It wasn't me. I didn't go to that
Right.
website. I didn't download that malware. So we're going to have some way to distinguish, with identity and with credentials between the agent.exe running on my system did it versus my hands-on keyboard.
It was the one-armed AI agent, right?
The one-armed AI agent. That's great. Yeah, I'm spending a lot of time traveling around talking to CISOs right now and finding out where they think the risks are and how they plan to govern this sort of access, so that we can, as we grow what we're doing there, we can support it better.
Well, Wendy, this was a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today. I hope you have a great trip, an uneventful trip.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to talk with everybody.
And we'll be right back in a few moments with the weekly Enterprise News. AI has officially moved past the hype. The question isn't should we use AI anymore, it's how do we use it in a way that truly helps. Meet Delinea Iris AI, practical AI to secure the modern enterprise, designed to work quietly in the background, making faster, smarter access decisions, reducing risk, and giving your team time back. This isn't AI for show. It's purpose-built for identity security, boosting productivity without adding friction. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Delinea. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software deployment and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/Meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/Meter. METER. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW436 if you want to follow along as we go through the news, or for links to the articles that we're covering. All right. And as is typical when we take a week off for a holiday or something like that, all the news drops, right? And it's just an absolute mess in terms of funding. Not a bunch of acquisitions, but had a lot of funding items there. I don't know if there's anything you guys specifically want to go through. There was only one that kind of raised my eyebrows. We are seeing a lot more. We're still seeing a bunch of AI security startups in here. Some of these are existing companies raising later rounds. But the one that raised my eyebrows was 20 Technologies, which is number 3 from the funding from last week list. And man, these guys have really gone all out on the Department of War branding on their website. I don't know if if you go to 20.io, so 20 spelled out, the word 20.io, and it's software that wins in war. We're not making software, we're making weapons. Funded to fight, built to win. True industrial scale cyber power. Victory as the only metric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate this. I hate this episode of Black Mirror. It is my least favorite episode, just for the record.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's such a conflict here in like half of the government is trying to take out stuff like NTO, like the the spyware makers, the malware, commercial malware makers, and then we're also funding them. So like we just constantly have this kind of two-faced kind of dual use approach to things here, where we're both funding software cyber weapons and trying to take them down.
Well, and every massive, almost killed the internet thing that has ever happened has originated as a offensive military security tool. Whether you want to talk about WannaCry, Stuxnet, like all of these things, you cannot keep this genie in the bottle. You cannot create these tools and expect that nobody standing around hundreds of $1 million industry where we have adversaries that have very deep pockets that would love to get their hands on these tools. It is just statistically impossible that nobody in the supply chain of these tools is going to sell them to somebody who shouldn't have them. And even some of our allies have, like Stuxnet is a really good example, right? Like there are a number of times that US allies have accidentally or on purpose-identally released these things into the wild. And we talked about this a handful of months ago with the one dude who wrote the opinion piece that we should be doing more offensive cyber warfare. And the main kind of consensus here was like, tell us you don't actually work with anybody who works in government cyber warfare without telling us that, because we're doing it. We just don't talk about it, because when you talk about it, you make yourself a target. And the whole thing's gross.
Yeah, it's the same conversation with backdoors and encryption and stuff, which the UK is again pushing Apple to get a backdoor in that feature that they just revoked from all UK users, end-to-end encryption of their iCloud. And it's the same thing there. There's no way to have a good guy only feature or weapon, or it's all going to be dual use. There's always going to be friendly fire concerns. There's always going to be collateral damage. So I don't know what these guys are going to be building, but it's going to be for the government because part of their founding team is somebody who his background is just government relations, right? They have a VP of government relations. So I don't know if we'll ever find out what they build, but they have a public website and they're raising public funding. And who is their funding? Caffeinated Capital. I've never heard of Caffeinated Capital before.
I know, and as a coffee drinker, I'm offended. I'm assuming it's more like Celsius and Red Bull than coffee, but
it is.
No, I mean, it's all escalation. And I often wonder if we are just far enough from the Cold War that we've forgotten that escalation like there is no point in escalation. And there was a reason that the Cold War ended, which is that we decided, hey, if we keep escalating this, we're basically just going to microwave the whole world. And that might not be a good idea. And I don't know. Although at this point, maybe taking out the whole world's internet is a good idea because, like I was saying in our last segment with Wendy, we kind of need to reset. But I just don't understand who in their right mind thinks that escalating cyber warfare is going to do anything other than leave people least able to defend themselves in a worse position.
Yeah, it's a pretty broad VC, Valley-based VC. They've got defense stuff, enterprise stuff, financial, healthcare, consumer, climate, crypto. They're all over the place. So a little bit of everything. Very diversified. All right, let's move on to more fun stuff. So, or maybe not. I don't know. We're going to talk about Windows 11 becoming an agentic OS. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read into this, but I do like that they are, and I just mentioned this in our conversation with Wendy, is we are right now in a place where agents are running with the same permissions on the same host as engineers, as developers. Whether it's Claude Code, Amazon Q, there's a bunch of them out there now. Some of them have computer vision. We've got agentic browsers now. With agentic finance is coming along. MasterCard has an agentic payments tool where basically you can tell it what you want, and it'll go out and do price comparisons and look for coupons and eventually buy the thing for you. And just like PayPal, you'll authorize it just for that exact amount, just for that one time. So, you kind of limit the blast radius there. But finance has this figured out. Like, I'm not worried about that MasterCard agentic thing. I'm worried about the agent that's on your. I keep reading stories about it erased the home drive, right? I gave this thing too many permissions, and it just wiped out all my data without a backup. So what Microsoft is talking about doing is actually isolating it, sandboxing it, so it will have access to the credentials that you explicitly give it, but it's not going to be running with your permissions in your instance. It's going to have its own special instance in the background. And they say all the right things, talk about the importance of transparency, audit trails, the ability to see exactly what it's doing at any given time, explicit permissions for what it's allowed to do. So I don't know. I know everybody hates it. The moment everybody said agentic, Windows is becoming an agentic OS, everyone threw up in their mouths. But you know what? Like all these AI agents, from what I can tell, most of them are running on Macs, and here Microsoft comes with like a reasonable solution, and because it's Microsoft, everybody's just like,
Can that reasonable solution also include having Mac hotkeys work on Windows? Because that's my biggest hurdle, is that the hotkey swapping is just, I have to use a special keyboard where I basically program it.
Jackie, I'm sorry, but Chromebooks, Linux, everything, Mac is the odd one out. Everybody else has the same keyboard shortcuts except for Apple.
Yeah.
And they don't make sense. They hands don't work that way. Like using your pinky for control, makes a lot more sense than using the third key from the left. I'm sorry. I'm team Linux and Windows for hotkeys.
My thumbs are more nimble. Sean, what do you use?
I use Windows. I've always used Windows. I dealt with a Mac when my wife had a Mac, and I kept getting the little spinny circle whenever I tried to do something on it. So I don't
threw it out a window.
Me very much. Yeah. So no, I think it makes sense. I mean, it sounds like Microsoft is putting the plumbing into the OS in order to enable and enhance the capabilities that it would have for agentic AI, which again, as you said, Adrian, a lot of these capabilities are in Mac right now. The web browsers that have come out, I believe, are Mac only right now as well, at least the one that I saw. So it makes sense from the perspective of providing the capability. Windows has had this capability of the so-called Windows Sandbox, which is basically a VM that gets spun up, and
Hyper-V.
you have to enable it. Yeah, so you have to enable it. It gets spun up within Hyper-V, and you can do whatever you want in that. You can open up malware, test out some things, and then when you close it out, it disappears. It wipes everything, and there's no persistence with it. So my guess is, since containerization is something that Windows Server has, that it's very likely that they're going to use a container of sorts, because they do say in the article that it's not going to be as heavyweight as a
full VM.
VM is going to be in, but it will have access to some documents, but it'll be its own sort of instance. So my guess is it's some sort of containerization, which again makes sense.
Yeah. I'm a big advocate of giving people safer spaces to do stupid, risky things. So this is right in that vein of things. It's the right move. It just, I think everybody's just still cynical about the actual technology itself, which makes it hard not to be cynical about creating safe spaces to use it.
Well, when Notepad on Windows has an AI switch, which I turned off earlier, we've gone too far.
They're really shooting themselves in the foot with the TPM requirements, abandoning all this hardware. Supposedly a bunch of people are moving to Linux. I'm going to try once again to see if I can switch over, for most of my daily tasks. Like there are just some basic things like sharing your screen in Zoom didn't work right, or, I just really don't want doing simple everyday office and business tasks to be like, 24-hour troubleshooting chores, which is the Linux of the past. So, it's interesting to see what'll happen. I mean, Windows is still the dominant operating system on the planet in terms of market share. So I'm sure its death is largely it is not as big as what we're hearing, right? Some good free tools here. Gray noise. So the link number 3, you can just click that link and it'll tell you if you are part of a botnet, if your network that you're on has been seen doing nasty stuff on the internet. So that is a really, really cool tool. Glad that they shared that. They already had the data, of course. So to do this, really all they had to do, that might be a link to the LinkedIn post about it. So maybe I lied in saying you just have to click that link.
I checked it out earlier on my side and I was clear. So definitely you have a link in there that works. Yeah.
They do have a link that you can just go to and it just give you a green or red, right? Like you're in trouble or you're not. So nice free tool there. Always love stuff like that. And then the other free tool here is Slop Evader, which is a browser extension that prevents you from browsing anything on the internet that existed after ChatGPT became a thing. So I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah.
I found some crazy statistic probably 6 months ago that said close to 2/3 of the internet is now AI generated slop. And I'll find the links.
I don't want that to be true.
No, same. And I guess it's a lot of it is poorly translated, like African languages and things like that, because if people are searching in their native language, they're so obscure that if you can translate the same page into like 84 different tribal languages from Africa, it's going to have great SEO and search for ad networks because that's the only thing that exists in their native language. I'll find the link. I think we've posted it before, but I would love to be able to figure those things out and avoid them. So whoever makes a filter that actually works, I will pay for it, and I will pay a decent amount per month for it.
Yeah, finding stuff on the internet's already become really difficult. I've been using Kagi. I like Kagi a lot because it's not paid for by advertising. I pay for it directly as a search engine. But yeah, in general, it's hard to find anything that's older than a year old. on the internet. Most search engines will lean towards more recent stuff, which makes it really, I do a lot of research online, and that makes it really difficult to do that research. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
And it makes it tricky to figure out where something came from, especially if you're trying to figure out a term or reference a paper or track back a source on something. It makes it very difficult to do that. I ran into that a year ago as well.
Let's face it, enterprise data is everywhere. It's spread across apps, devices, and hybrid cloud environments, and traditional security tools are struggling to keep up. That's where Sky-High Security makes a difference. Its Security Service Edge platform brings together capabilities like data security posture management, remote browser isolation, secure web gateway, and AI to unify and strengthen data protection. Designed for today's digital landscape, Sky-High Security helps organizations discover, classify, and track sensitive data, no matter where it lives. To learn how businesses are future-proofing their data security, visit securityweekly.com/Sky-High Security. A password manager should be the first security purchase you make for your team. Why? Because compromised passwords are the #1 way that bad actors attack companies, and small businesses are their favorite targets. But unlike a lot of security challenges, passwords actually have a pretty simple solution. 1Password lets you manage all your business's credentials so you can feel confident that your data stays secure as your company grows. Find out more at securityweekly.com/1Password and start securing every login. The next two stories on cyber insurance, I would love to hear from some of our audience on what they're actually seeing, because every version of the cyber insurance story is out there. Premiums are getting more expensive. No, they're actually getting less expensive. They are paying out for ransomware. They're not paying out for ransomware. I'm hearing both, every imaginable extreme from different folks out there. So it's, I would love to hear from people from what they're actually seeing out there with their cyber insurance. The first story is Beasley, which I'd never heard before, but apparently they're a really big insurance company, backing away from offering cyber insurance. And but in the same article, they say premiums are going down, and it's kind of a tough market because there's limited folks that actually want cyber insurance. So it's very competitive, and that's why premiums are coming down. But then the other link is a Facebook post where this guy is saying, yeah, my premiums doubled, and they're not covering BEC or ransomware or any of the likely scenarios where I would actually have to use it. So I don't know. I would love to hear more from people.
Well, so I worked in insurance for a long time, and we talk about adverse selection, right? Which is that the people who are most likely to need insurance are the people who are least likely for insurance companies to want to insure. And so I think that's been kind of a problem that these companies have tried to deal with over the last couple years. And I wrote 2024. Yeah, last year when I became an analyst again, I wrote one of my first things was kind of, MSPs, MSSPs are going to explode over the next couple years because I do think premiums are going down, but I think that's a result of the fact that underwriting standards are going up. And so, if you look 2-3 years ago, cyber risk insurance was basically like, check a box, sign here, we'll give you cyber risk insurance. That's not the case anymore. So I think insurers have gotten a lot more intelligent about asking about very specific things. Are you using EDR? Are you using, so they've gotten much more picky. And in the last year, I've also had vendors trying to convince me that by using their products, their customers are paying lower premiums because they're better able to meet those underwriting standards. And so I was basically telling companies, like, I think within the next year or two, if you have less than 5,000 employees, you probably won't be able to get cyber risk insurance without using a service provider, because there's no way you can staff an effective 24-hour security operation. So I think that both things can be true at the same time. Realistically, all insurance in the world rolls up to 6 or 7 companies. So even though you might have like a Beasley or a Coalition or whatever, that insurance and risk generally gets repackaged and resold. And then it's like Chubb, AXA, Travelers, AIG,
Yeah.
and they all end up having, all of that risk concentrated. So some of it may also be insurers' ability to sell those policies after they write them to those larger secondary insurers, who maybe not have the same appetite they did before. So, but yeah, I mean, I would love to hear, especially from mid-sized businesses, because we know that JP Morgan and Bank of America can get cyber risk insurance, right? I want to hear from, whoever runs 7-Eleven's cybersecurity. I want to hear from whoever runs like smaller operations, what they're actually hearing from their insurers and how the underwriting process has changed, because unfortunately we get a lot of anecdotal information from vendors, not a lot from the actual customers.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just, there's a lot of small text as well, right? I've seen cases where, the policy paid out, but it didn't pay out until long after the policyholder needed the money. So they already had to wind down operations. In the case of Knights of Old, UK business that went out of business after an attack, and then we can only pay this out if you have MFA enabled everywhere, and you didn't have it enabled everywhere. So there's all these triggers where. We came in after the fact, did the investigation, and using their forensics company, of course, that of their choosing, and yeah, you had some misconfigurations to call back to our first interview with Threatlocker, and that's enough that your policy doesn't pay out.
Yeah.
So number 9 is something I think most people in security have probably seen. Bob Lord has done a really good job in marketing this campaign. So Stop Hacklore has a website. It's been all over LinkedIn. And Bob Lord has, he most recently worked for CISA. I'm not sure if he's between gigs right now. I'm not sure what he's doing right now. Maybe this is what he's doing, but he's trying to spread the word about stuff like juice jacking and never use public Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff. And it's kind of interesting to see pushback. This is not something it's unpopular with some people. Some people, they love the FUD. They love sharing this kind of stuff, because it fits in with the security taglines, that they use, how they sell security, especially consultants and stuff like that. You'll see them, never use public Wi-Fi without a VPN, as if a VPN is this magic tool.
And the VPN will help you.
Getting hacked. Yeah. So I'm glad to see this generally.
Yeah. I've actually, speaking of VPNs, one of the things that's been really frustrating to me the last probably year is the number of large services that are now forcing you to disable your VPN just to make basic things work. For example, my smart Meta glasses, you can't download your media from Meta from your glasses to your phone, even though it's connected via Bluetooth and should be fine to transmit that way. They forced me to turn my VPN on my phone off just to be able to transfer media.
It has to use Wi-Fi to transfer the media, so I don't know if that makes a difference. Yeah, because Bluetooth is too slow to transfer. Yeah, so they do use Wi-Fi,
but my question, though, is why can't they use Bluetooth? But yeah, Ticketmaster is another example. The Ticketmaster app will not work if you're using a VPN. So no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you have to turn your VPN off because Ticketmaster gives you this hey, we've detected some type of anomalous thing. And so I don't know. I
suspect it has to do with how they charge for stuff, right? Like maybe there's ticket sales restrictions, or there's an additional tax they have to apply if you're coming from a certain country. I imagine it's something around that.
Yeah, the only thing I was guessing is that my VPN was out of Phoenix and I was standing in Glendale, Arizona. So maybe there was a conflict between the location my phone showed and the location my IP showed. I don't know, but it was frustrating as hell to not be able to pull my tickets up on the Ticketmaster app.
That's dumb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, every interaction with Ticketmaster is dumb. So it's irritating all around.
Yeah, and now they're deeply embedded with a bunch of other companies that also have really intrusive apps. 404 actually did a podcast on it a couple weeks ago about I think it was the Staples Center, where you have to scan your face, and like it's cashless everywhere, and you actually like scan into and out of some of the retail. All of the retail stores are unstaffed, and they use your face to charge you. It was bizarro, and you can't opt out. It was crazy.
No thanks.
Sorry, I digress.
Yeah. Pearl Jam had the right idea long time ago. I think it was like the late 90s when they first tried to stand up to Ticketmaster. And then there's I forget the name of the one that controls all the venues. But there's another company that basically controls all the performance venues, and similar problems with it.
Oh, AXS, yeah.
All right, just a few minutes left here, Sean. Let's go ahead and talk about you've got a Twitter a tweet here from the IBM CEO of all people.
So
ranting about AI.
Absolutely. So apparently he's done the math and says it doesn't add up, and that building and operating a 1 gigawatt AI data center costs about $80 billion, and companies are planning roughly 100 gigawatts of capacity, which is $8 trillion total, which means that you need 800 billion per year in profit just to pay the interest on the debt, which is more than any tech company makes. So it does not compute. So as it is, the data centers tend to have short lifespans, about 5 years before chips are not exactly obsolete, but aren't the cutting edge. So he says you're basically rebuilding every half decade, which is challenging because when you have investors, they want to model 12 to 18% of returns on it. And so the real question is whether the business model will work. And that's why he's skeptical about the whole thing, because it just doesn't compute. And I know Jackie is very much against the AI data centers, as we've heard before. And they keep standing them up. Microsoft stood up a huge one recently. Amazon has one that has huge amounts of capacity that they're standing up. It's just crazy.
So Amazon just pulled out of one here.
Okay.
Because so there are like 5 or 6 different data center projects all happening around my house. I live just outside Tucson, Arizona. And Amazon just pulled out of the one that they were talking about building in south of Tucson, because they're building an air cooled data center. And because that's the other thing too. I actually think 5 years is really, really generous. My understanding is that the life is more like 18 to 24 months if you're lucky for these chips, especially at the temperatures they're running them at. So 5 years, I have not heard anywhere close to 5 years for these GPUs. And I think if it's 5 years, NVIDIA's whole business model breaks, right?
So I got this clarified when I was at SC. I brought this up with somebody who worked at NVIDIA, and apparently early batches of cards, they were actually engineering samples, were dying at a crazy rate. And there was a lot of the engineering samples out there in the wild. And the current ones should be good for at least 5 years. But I think the obsolescence has more to do with the assumption that newer cards are going to be operationally cheaper. So the longer you continue to use old cards, operationally the expense is going to be higher. So at some point, you want to get the more efficient ones to reduce your operational cost.
Yeah, and AI factories are all the rage now. And this is like Dell's got their AI factories. So it's not just the chips, because you also need the racks, the networking, the rear door heat exchangers, and all of that. And those are also, you can't just upgrade the chip now, because if it's part of this factory that's a whole rack, that whole thing needs to go.
It's crazy how many thousands of miles of cabling they need for some of these operation centers, data centers. It's just insane.
Yeah.
I was looking, somebody was sharing the amount of power it takes for a 10-second Sora video, and it's like 5 hours of watching Netflix. it's equivalent to, or gaming online or something like that. For a video of a cat saving somebody from a cobra while they're sleeping, or
Yeah.
clearly we need a lot more of that.
Yeah. Well, and, we were talking to Wendy about how to rein some of this in. And I honestly think that pricing transparency and forcing companies to force their consumers to pay the real price of that cloud computing is what's going to stop this, because we've had private equity, venture capital, and kicking the can down the road, subsidizing the cost of cloud computing for 15 years. Nobody has ever truly paid the cost of the compute they're using, because it's in tech's best interest to keep it artificially low to compete with the other companies, the other hyperscalers. And so my opinion is that we need to have forced transparency, make people pay what it really costs, and they'll stop using it.
Well, I mean, reality is, going to cut in here at some point, because subsidizing AI is at least one order of magnitude more expensive than subsidizing something like cloud. So just the reality, the physics of money is gonna force a reckoning here at some point, I think. Some point soon, and we can argue about how soon, right? There are literal bets on how soon this happens.
I'm 60 days further out than Michael Burry. So as pessimistic as I am, I'm not as pessimistic as Michael Burry, but I've got a higher strike price out to May. But I mean, and Adrian, this also goes to the article you shared, where AI found the accounting irregularities in NVIDIA before financial analysts did. Even AI is
just hilarious.
I'm a shell game.
Yeah. All right, we've got some great essays in here that I urge you to go check out. We don't have time to talk about them. One of them, number 12, is really good. How to Get Fired is kind of like the, nobody really talks about, it sucks to get fired. But yeah, it's a good read. I urge people to take a look at that. It talks about how to take some of the sting out of it. We need more security generalists. Always some good takes from, what's his name? Frank here, Frankly Speaking on Substack. Check that out. There is a paper on securing MCP, Model Context Protocol, risk controls and governance. I have not had a chance to consume that yet. That just came in. I just found that yesterday. And I have some opinions. You can read it in the show notes on U.S. Supreme Court is dealing with a decision between Cox and record labels, where they want your ISP to take you off the internet if you do any kind of, if you're even accused, maybe falsely, of infringing on some copyright, downloading a song or video or something illegally. The idea that you would boot that entire household, that entire ISP user off the internet seems a little insane to me. So hopefully there's no chance of that actually passing. And then we've got our squirrel story, which is an entire country dropping off the internet because somebody forgot to pay GoDaddy. And that is the country of Vanuatu, which I think this is kind of like Tuvalu, the .to, one of these countries where like a significant portion of their GDP comes from people registering their domain names using their TLD, which is .vu. So if you're wondering, deja.vu is taken. That's I think the first thing that occurs to most people when they see a .vu. But yeah, somebody forgot to pay the bill, and all the DNS started getting wonky and stopped working and stuff like that. And he went on Reddit to figure it out and to get it up and working again.
Reddit saves
Let's hope that
day.
doesn't happen with the Aleutian Islands, which is who has .ai.
.ai, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like that's actually a concern. That's something you should think about. If you have a .co, that's the country of Colombia. They're IO, I think, is Indian Ocean. random Indian Ocean islands or something like that. So who controls that TLD is should actually be part of your risk register, your threat model, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, domain takeover is a thing you should be concerned about. All right, with that, thank you, Sean and Jackie, so much for joining me today. A lot of fun today. I was mostly on time until we got to the stories. It's really hard to do a 30-minute story segment, news segment.
For sure.
Big thanks to everyone for watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Next week, we'll be talking to Tony Kelly from Fortra about data security posture management, DSPM, and we will see you then. Bye-bye.